Hello, everyone. I am Brady Bridges, and I'm the broker and owner of Reside Real Estate here in Fort Worth, Texas. I want to welcome you to another episode of Real Talk with Reside Real Estate. We are a top producing team here in Fort Worth, Texas, and we want this podcast to be a resource for anyone looking to learn more about real estate and the great city of Fort Worth, Texas.
Welcome to another episode of Real Talk with Reside Real Estate. Today I'm joined by Hunter Miller. Hunter grew up on the west side of Fort Worth and attended San Houston State. Following his graduation in 2012, he opened a farmer's insurance agency and ran that for 7 years. He sold that agency and opened up Worth Insurance just weeks before COVID hit in 2020. Hunter currently lives in the Ridgemar area of Fort Worth with his beautiful wife, Katie, their 2 children, Beckett and Quinn, and 2 wild pups. Hunter, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited about this.
So Hunter, I thought you'd be a great person to bring in. Insurance, obviously there's a lot going on in y'all's world, in the market. It's something everybody needs if they're buying a house. So kind of expand on that. Tell us how you got into the business and kind of what you do.
Yeah, I'm 33 and live 53. With too much gray hair. Insurance business will do that. So I graduated with a marketing degree and had no clue what I wanted to do. It is one of the most basic degrees you can get. And so I moved back to Fort Worth, and I was living in near St. Houston. And so graduated, came back home, and started looking for jobs. Didn't know where to even begin, right? They don't really tell you that in college a lot of times. And so I remember getting a phone call from a recruiter. You know, it was a farmer's insurance recruiter. And he said, hey, there's an opportunity to own an agency. Why don't you come in for an interview? I didn't have anything else lined up. And I said, well, heck, I'll go see what this is about. Remember, it was on a Friday before Christmas of, I guess, 2012, and went and interviewed. And it sounded so good. You could literally open up an agency and own it, which is not the case for some other insurance carriers. We can own the agency, and you don't have to have any money. I was like, that's great, because I'm 22 and don't have any money. I have no, right? I have literally no jobs probably. Yeah, this is sounding great. And I remember calling my girlfriend at the time, which is now my wife, Katie. And I said, hey, it sounded great, but almost like too good. It sounds a little scammy. And I was like, I don't think I want to take that opportunity. And I remember her saying in a nice way, like, you're a moron if you don't take the opportunity. You have nothing else lined up. And so sure enough, I started down that process. And so really after Christmas, I started getting the licensing part. So I started truly in 2013. And we were in that for almost 7 years on the farmer side.
So how does that look? Did you start with nothing and just had to build up your book, or did you take over something? Or
no, I literally started with 0 policies. And their promise back then was, if you sell, I think it was like 40 families, then you can be a full-time agent. Okay. So after a couple months, I got that knocked out. I always tell people, you always see these like commercials for farmers, like University of Farmers. That's a real thing. They have one in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and one in Thousand Oaks, California. So when you finish those, become a full-time agent, you go there. So I went to Grand Rapids the first time, and there was a bunch of fresh-faced kids just like me who are all trying to make it in the career of insurance. And so that's how I got started. And the burnout rate for insurance agents is really, really high.
I'm sure there's a pretty good correlation between real estate agents and insurance agents, right? It's an eat what you kill.
It is
business,
especially early on, right? I would say like I think there was probably 25 people in that class of kind of new insurance agents, and I would say there's probably 3 or 4 left in insurance. Yeah, it's just when you're not making renewals and it's just new business, it's a really tough gig. And so I was super fortunate to have great people kind of around me for the first 2 years and try to figure it out. Yeah, I still feel like I'm trying to figure it out a little bit. But we ran that for 7 years. And it gave me an opportunity to truly be an entrepreneur, because they let you do your own thing. They're not, yes, there's come the corporate side and having you do certain things with logos and making sure your office hours are, coordinating right.
Sounds like it was a great opportunity to jump into where you're at now, right? Like
100%
really running their own.
Yes, because I feel like on the brokerage side, so when we opened the brokerage side right before COVID, it is a wild, wild west up there, right? So farmers gave me the training I needed, kind of the structure of how to run an operation. And now on this side, I could do it. I don't think if I was 23, I could run a brokerage. There's no way.
Yeah. So that's where we're at today. You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
So kind of, you focus primarily on residential, I'm guessing home and auto, car, all those type of policies?
Yeah, we're 90% on auto, home, life insurance. So that's our bread and butter. We do some small commercial.
Okay.
But auto, home is our go-to.
So, obviously it's something, a lot of times I'm sure, I know this, but you guys will usually refer it either from family, friends, probably a lot of lenders you guys work with to get policies. When in the process, people going through buying their home, I think it's really good for people to have a conversation with you guys earlier on about when they should talk to y'all.
Yeah.
So kind of going to that about when you're going through the home buying process, when is the time to talk to an insurance agent?
So I'll start by saying we have an awesome marketing director in Bernice, and so she is out all the time, meeting real estate agents, brokers, lenders. So she is kind of the face of marketing for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think she does a really good job of setting that expectation early on and go, hey, let's not wait till a week before closing to figure this out. Let's start getting, rates and having conversations with people. Most folks that we have, that we talk to do not know very much about insurance. So our job is to educate them. And I know it's the most boring conversation.
Yes.
Right. I joke with folks. I say, the real estate agent's going to do the fun job. They get to show you these beautiful houses. The lenders are the good guys, right? Because they are lending you a lot of money. And then the insurance guys are there because you have to have it, right? But we try to educate. I think that's one of the things that maybe people enjoy about us is like there are a ton of, brokers maybe around the area that will just send an email, say, hey, here's the quote. And it's 3 or 4 pages of numbers that people don't understand. Right? They don't know what they're getting into. And our approach is that you're buying sometimes your biggest asset you'll ever buy, right? 4 or 5, 600,000, well, bigger, right? And that's scary if you don't know what you're getting into. So we see a ton of times they go, oh, I have this policy or I'm thinking about buying this, but I have no clue what it is. So we try to spend a few minutes with them and go, hey, this is why you need something, right? So I need enough dwelling coverage, or here are the deductible options, or here's the water damage that you need to have. And I think that's one of the things that we're most proud of is making people a little bit smarter when it comes to insurance.
Yeah, I think I've seen it so many times just on my end with clients where you guys are kind of in the same boat where lenders are, where you guys get rate shopped really hard and everything's not apples to apples. So like somebody will get these quotes online where it looks really, really good, but all their coverages are terrible.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important, and you can speak to this, but there's a big difference between good insurance brokers and just the fly-by, I would say fly-by, but the people that just are throwing out the lowest rate. So when people are going through this process, how can you identify if you're working with someone that is working in their best interest?
Yeah. I think it just goes back to education, right? The biggest thing that we hear is like, and my mom works for me. She's awesome. She's not a salesperson.
Like keeps you in line.
Yeah, she doesn't let me play enough golf, but, one of the things I overhear a lot is if I'm like watching or listening to them on the call, it's the fact that they go, I had no clue. Thank you for informing me about that, right? Most people, when they call or call in, they are looking for the lowest cost. That's what they say.
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely is that what we end up showing them, right? Because that's just not, they need more than that.
And lowest cost is the worst coverage.
Yes. And, but yeah, there are a ton of great brokers here, and I admire a lot of them. But yes, there are some agents that will just give them high deductibles, no water damage, with not a great carrier.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's all a matter of if you're going to have a claim, it's when. And our job as an insurance professional is to get them in the best possible situation before they make a claim.
So when someone's going through the process, do you kind of have, and I don't, it's probably not, is there kind of a standard for you when you're writing policies for people of what you expect that the minimum coverages they should have? Like obviously it differs, right? But what would you say most homeowners going in, let's just say they're buying their first house at $350,000.
Yeah.
Like, what do they need to know about, or what do they need to be aware about when they're doing this?
Yeah.
So as if they don't run into someone like you, right? Yeah. What do they need to be looking at to make sure they're protected?
Yeah. So obviously the first biggest claim in Texas is a hailstorm, right? Obviously over the past, week, we've seen 2 hailstorms, right? Back to back from Monday and Tuesday. And so that's always going to be the number one hailstorm, or number one claim here.
I just imagine when that happens, like your phone is just sitting there, like you're just waiting for
Yes, exactly. The cool thing with that is we can kind of be proactive. We have a cool software that will send out like a mass email, say, hey, beware of some storms. Bring your cars inside. Be careful. But yes, after a claim, we're pretty busy. But one of the things that we tell people, so the second biggest claim in Texas is going to be water damage, right? Whether that's what I call sudden and accidental, or most policies are going to cover that, but the second one is going to be foundation coverage. So the pipe breaks underneath the slab, or let's say water or sewage backup.
I've had to take a claim out on one of those on a rent house.
Exactly. So sewage water come up from a toilet, a shower, or sink. Not a very fun situation. We see that quite a bit. And then a newer one we've seen quite recently is call a sewer lines coverage, which basically from the road into your house are responsible for. And so whether a tree root wraps around it, whatever the case, we're seeing a lot of plumbing issues with that. So with a lot of policies, water damage is not the sudden and accidental, which would be like a hot water heater. Yeah, that's covered. But sewer backups not covered under a lot of policies where you'll see that, or foundations not covered, right? So in my opinion, a good broker is going to explain those coverages to folks. When we're talking about a couple $100 a year to insure it the right way, I think most people, when they talk to us, they go, oh, that's a no-brainer. Why would I not do that? We're talking about $20 a month to actually make sure if something really bad happens, it's taken care of the right way.
Well, I think that's why it's important, for the whole process, to have a really good team. That's one of the things I tell my agents and my team. You need to work with people you know and trust. From us working with the inspectors we work with, to the lenders we work with, to the insurance agent, right? If we know that there was an issue on the inspection report that we had to get fixed, if it had foundation work, hey, when you talk to your insurance guy, you need to make sure to tell them. Maybe don't tell them, just say it. Y'all don't want to know.
Make sure it's covered. Yes.
Yeah. Right. Make sure it's covered. But I think that's really great advice, because that is the most common thing. I had obviously filed hail claim damage, and then the biggest one I've ever had was that sewer backup. Yeah, because it backed up, it broke plumbing lines, and then it also flooded the house. It was a $40,000 claim, and if I didn't have that, I don't know what I would do. I'd have been screwed.
Well, as an investor too, think about on a cash flow standpoint, $40,000, that's a lot of money. And if you're,
then you're going to displace tenant, it's a huge ordeal.
Yeah.
So let's kind of go into that, right? We work with both just regular home buyers and investors. So let's flip it to the investor side. What differs for an investor going into and talking to you guys versus someone that's just buying their own primary residence?
Yes, 2 totally separate policies, right? So on the landlord side, that market is tightening a little bit. Again, insurance, we're in what we call a tough market. So there have been some carriers that drop out, but there are still a few carriers that we have that I think do an awesome job. On the investor front, I still think it's super important to have replacement cost coverage versus actual cash value. Actual cash value is going to depreciate when you have a claim. So every time you have a claim, you're going to be disappointed. Okay. And so there are certain carriers that have replacement cost, not only on the building, but if you have a claim on water damage or, hail damage. So that is number one. If you can get replacement costs as a landlord, try to get with that. And so I think there's kind of 2 types of investors. There's, I feel like the first time investors want the better coverage. They want to make sure that their investment is as safe as possible.
Yeah.
I feel like when you scale and you start to get more units, that's when, certain properties it's just going to cost too much to insure.
And I have some clients, once they got to 10, they switched over to a commercial style policy.
Yeah.
Or I think it was a 1% deductible over the whole.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are certain carriers, I know Travelers, for the longest time did not want, they didn't want to insure anybody who has 14 more, or if anything else at 14 was okay. 15 is when they said, hey, that's not our appetite. We don't like it. And so then they would have to switch to commercial policy.
Yeah. So you're saying y'all's market's tough right now. So we were kind of talking about this before. Dallas-Fort Worth's been hit with hailstorms and just all the major losses across the country the past few years. So what are you seeing with rates, right? They've been climbing for the past few years, but is there any slowdown in sight? Like what's going on with the insurance market, and what should those people expect that maybe bought their house last year going into renewals this year? Should they expect surprises?
Yeah. So one of the things that we have never seen anything like this. I mean, I've been in the business for 11 years, and I felt like over the first 9 years of my career, we saw a 5 or 10% rate increase. I would freak out and go, oh my gosh, we went from 1,500 now to we're at 1,650 or whatever, right? And now we're seeing 30 to 70% easily, right? 30% is going to be the absolute middle I see on the homeowners rate increase. And then we have some carriers leaving. Nationwide just announced that. Luckily in Texas, they're not pulling out of new business, but they are tightening restrictions. So when carriers are losing money in the market, which they are right now, they're going to do a couple of things. They're either going to leave the market, or they are going to basically make restrictions on agents to try to slow business down. So a prime example, Germania, it's one of our biggest client or biggest carriers that we utilize. We have a thing called a rater. So we would put a Brady Bridges buying this house, and it pops up a bunch of quotes. And it's called a rater. Germania was always on a rater. Now they've taken themselves off the rater because they don't want your business. They, in a nice way, they grew too fast, and they are still open for business, but they just want to be on their own rater in their system. So they know agents, as like we are lazy individuals, a lot of us, right? They know we're not going to go to the Germania site and have it all in double entry, right? And so that's on the new business side, that's what it's tightening quickly. And Texas is probably the second or third hardest market, I think, in the U.S. I mean, you're always going to have issues in Florida. It's just coastline and what they have to deal with. And California politically, and you're always going to have issues there. I think State Farm just pulled out all of California. I think Allstate is there as well.
So what do the people do, right? If all these providers are pulling out, and also, like, a lot of people can't afford a 30 to 70% increase on their escrow account.
Yeah.
So like, are they adjusting their products to like payment plan? Like, what are they doing? Because they have to assume that that's the case, right? That people can't afford these drastic changes.
Yeah, I haven't heard of anything yet on that. In terms of, one is because we probably have, 20 of these phone calls a week of, hey, my rate's going up. And we try to be proactive on it, of going, hey, like, we understand. When I first got started, I said, hey, anything over 10% rate increase, let's reshop it. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's every account now. So we are very heavy on the on that side of things, and that's keeping us busy. And so, yeah, I think part of it is just an education standpoint, mm-hmm. right? Of going, we hear this a lot from like people who are calling in. They're going, hey, I had a $2,000 rate increase, and I never heard from a broker. What's going on with that, right? And that's a big increase. And we are not perfect at all, right? We make mistakes daily at Worth Insurance, but one of the things that we try to do is what's the word I'm looking for? Empathize with folks, and go, hey, I'm right there with you. I just had a big rate increase too with my house, and so trying to kind of go over the policy again, explain why they bought that product, and if we do need to make changes, whether that's, we try to get them to look at, first and foremost, the easiest part to try to reduce insurance costs is going to be bundling. If we can bundle auto or life insurance, or any sort of boat or RV, that's going to be helpful. And then the second thing is if they're comfortable and they maybe have a new roof, we can go from a 1% to a 1.5% deductible, right? It puts more risk on them, right? And there's going to be some folks that are not comfortable with that and totally okay. But there are some folks that say, hey, I can stomach a 2% deductible on wind and hail, and I know the risk that's attached to it. That's going to be a way to lower cost.
Well, yeah, I'm sure like it definitely varies on the price of the house, what you're you're willing to do, right? But yeah, no, I think that's all really good stuff. So let's just say you do have one of these major claims, right? I know right now you have so many people, like in our market right now, there's so many roofers out there, new roofing companies. These insurance companies know how much it actually costs to replace these roofs, right?
Yeah.
Because I've run into some situations with clients where you can have 2 or 3 different roofers come out and the price that they quote varies by 30, 40%.
Right.
So how do you go about picking, what do you tell your clients, hailstorm hits my house, who do I need to call? Like, what do they need to know about? Do they call and get the adjuster out there first to get prices, or do they get the roofer to get a quote first?
What I like, first of all, I think Kevin at DT Construction is awesome. Yeah, I know he's been on y'all's show a couple times. I think he does an awesome job.
Yeah.
And so we've sent him a few deals. And what I like to do as an agent is if somebody calls us and say, I have a hailstorm or I have a hail claim potential, right? I like to get Kevin or another roofing expert out there first. Because a lot of times people will freak out and they will think that they need a new roof automatically. And maybe Kevin comes out and says, hey, like the texture not that much damage. Maybe a few shingles are flying off. Yeah, we're going to take care of it, right? Other times he's going to come out and says, no, we really do need to file a claim. It's really that bad. And so, yeah, having a roofing expert as part of your extension of your team, I think goes a long way.
So you prefer to send out a professional first before you get the adjuster out?
Yeah. There's a lot of times, and we have this happen a lot when we're talking about with new clients. We will pull up what is called a clue report, and that shows kind of their overall claims history.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we will see a $0 hail claim or a $0 claim in general, and they don't know it counts against them, right? The thing is, just because it was 0 doesn't mean there was no damage. It could just mean it was under deductible. And so carriers look at that, right? And we see that a ton on water damage, right? Somebody comes home, their house is flooding, they automatically file a claim,
but then it's cheaper than their deductible, so they just fix it.
Exactly.
So they still put that on there? You don't pull money off of it?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
One of the kind of not the greatest things with insurance.
So make sure before you call your
yes, 100%. So a prime example is we have somebody in our office that lives over at Ridgemore, and she, middle of the night, her hot water heater flooded her house. Or it was like late at night, and they came home, and at first we were like, it's probably going to be under the deductible. Why don't you, go get the fans, have surf broke them out, do the whole thing, right? I thought it was going to be $3,000 or $4,000, which is right at her deductible, right at it. Wouldn't have made sense. Ended up being about a $30,000 claim.
Yeah, that's go ahead and file.
Yeah. So obviously, once the professional came out, said no, this is actually a bigger issue than what we think. Let's go and file.
So can you get too far down the process? Like, what if you get, will they not cover it if you get really deep into it and then file the claim?
No. Keeping receipts is going to be awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. And obviously, if you're working with the right people.
I just didn't know right now because, we talked about it before just a little bit. All these carriers are losing money. Are they trying to find ways not to cover stuff?
I will say, I think the good carriers that we work, and part of our strategy is there are a lot of brokers that will kind of, beat their chest and say, hey, we have 20 carriers and we can shop the market. Where the the best deal. That's really not our approach. We have 5 or 6 really good brands that people know and trust. And so when I say, hey, I have this Travelers quote for you or Safeco, most people know who that is.
Well, you want the company you're going to be insured by to be around.
Exactly. And over the last few years, you have folks like Lighthouse, Mason, these regional guys that, in my opinion, come into a market like DFW and think they can compete against a Travelers or a Safeco, right?
Start going out low rates,
and they think they have a strategy to, save a customer 10 or 15% until a claim happens. And Texas is unique because you've got to think about it. Every sort of situation, Texas it's gonna hit. So you have wildfires, freezes, hurricanes down south, right? Hailstorms up here, right? So Texas is just a really tough place to compete when you're an insurance carrier. And so, and so one of my things is call, whether it's us or your other broker, make sure you call them first before you just file a claim. I remember when I was a farmer's agent way back in the day, I gave everybody my cell phone number. I said, hey, if if you're a customer, you have my cell phone number. If there's ever an emergency, please call me, right? And literally, it was probably 2015 or 16. It was like 2:30. I get this phone call from a random 940 number, and I like turn it off. Right, it's like 3 a.m. They call again, which wakes my wife up. So now she has this random number calling my cell phone. She's probably thinking like, who is this like person, right? I reject them again, and a text message said, "Hey, this is Hunter. Is everything okay?" And I remember like it was yesterday. They said, "No, my house is on fire." And that, as an insurance agent, that like you will jump out of bed.
Yeah.
Like, so I called them. And,
Sorry about that.
yes, it was a house, I believe, in Justin, Texas, which back then was kind of the middle of nowhere, and a remote control, a little car that they had in the garage, Charger, it was a Charger, caught on fire, and beautiful custom home, burned to the ground, basically.
Oh,
Yeah, and I mean, they did not save one thing. So when I got the phone call, they got the kids out, obviously, they got the cell phone out and a credit card out, and that was it. And so it was truly miserable. I went out the next morning and they had a Ford Expedition, and that was melted. Like, you couldn't even tell it was a car. I mean, it was that bad. And so one of the things I tell people is, having the right insurance broker, right, that actually is going to answer the phone calls if it's an emergency, right? If it's a fender bender, that's one thing, right? But if it's a true emergency, like, you need to be able to get in touch with your contact.
I have to call 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, you may have to call 3 times. I mean, it's 2 a.m. I'm a heavy sleeper, right?
What company is it that has like, she sounds hideous?
State Farm, right? Yeah. That was pretty much. I remember calling some farmers.
What house girlfriend is calling me?
Yeah, it was really. Yeah, I saved most of the clients, and I guess I didn't save that one. And yeah, it's a really crazy experience.
Oh, I can't even imagine. That sounds just.
It was scary. Of course, you wake up or you get up, you're like, I think the house is insured, right? I hope your husband will laugh.
You're on the house.
Yeah, and so they covered it the right way.
I got an adrenaline shot at 3 a.m.
I didn't sleep for right after that. I got up and started working. So
kind of, we'll go into. So what's if you were to give like your top piece of advice for a home buyer, or just someone right now that has a home, what's the like top tip you could give them in regards to their insurance, the renewals?
Yeah, I think working with a broker is going to be a huge plus for you. I come from the captive side where I can only sell a farmer's product, right? So you have farmers who's captive, USA, State Farm, a couple other brands, right? And yeah, they're a national brand. I think they're great at what they do. But the problem is, especially in this rate climate, they have one option. And so when rates go up 30, 40, 15%, all they can say is, well, hey, we've had, record-breaking, rate hikes, and there's nothing we can do, right? Maybe they can adjust a thing or two, but they can't go to another carrier and market it, right? As a broker, we can at least go, hey, you're still in the best spot, or we need to move it to XYZ carrier. I mean, just the other day, we took a client from one of our brands that it went up quite a bit and saved them $2,200, switching them to another thing, switching to Travelers. And so I think that is a huge help. Try to bundle is going to be another helpful hand. And then really trying to maximize, the discounts that carriers are doing, try to take advantage of it. On the auto side, I'm a fan of the telematics discount. I know some folks hate it, but telematics will track your driving.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of have with most carriers, it starts out at like a 10% discount. Auto rates are high too. And so if you get to save 10% a year, that's a great start. But that discount could go all the way to 35%. I think Progressive's at 45% now. If you're
So is it up to your phone? Or
yeah, you can with most carriers, it's going to be an app. With some, it's a plug-in on your car. But I think it's a great tool if you're a good driver. Studies show that you could save, I think the average is 18%.
do you do it on your?
I do. I have it on the Safeco app.
Yeah.
So, but some people say it's kind of Big Brother watching you. And I get that. But so is Facebook and Instagram and every app. And so it runs in the background. And I think it's an incredible tool that could save you several $100s a year. Where some, if you say, hey, take off rental or take off roadside on auto, we're talking saving a few bucks a month. That doesn't really help.
Yeah.
I think trying to maximize those discounts.
And I'm sure sometimes it is just a teeth pull, like, okay, what can we save here? If you don't want to cut that, then it's like $100 worth of additional coverages.
100%. Yeah. I hope that we could get to a point in insurance. I don't know if it'll ever go down. Just the way inflation's been and the cost of material, right? Insurance gets a bad rap because we are kind of the last guys between the consumer, and we're the ones saying, hey, your rate's gone up 40%. Prime example, my wife got in a wreck. This was like really when rates started kind of getting a little crazy, like a year and a half ago. She gets a wreck on Camp Bowie. It wasn't her fault. And this happened, I think, in August. There was no, we could not even get it in for an estimate for like 3 months.
Really?
Yes. We finally got it, and luckily it was just a fender bender. Yes, it wasn't a big deal. But so, those type of body shops are hard to get into, right? When you do get them in, parts are more expensive, which isn't their fault, right? But labor's more expensive, right? And all of that goes into insurance rates. And even medical, right? If somebody gets hurt in a wreck, medical is at an all-time high. And so we always hope that if you get in a wreck, you have a 1985 Honda with no injuries. But that's not a reality. And so rates, I hope we can get to a point at some point that rates can go up or stay stable 5 or 10%.
I know we'll have to.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't keep on taking 50, 60, 70%.
Where I think we're reaching that peak.
And I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think this is a good thing for people to know about what you guys do. Like y'all aren't juicing the quotes, like adding on additional premium. Like y'all get paid directly from the carrier.
Right.
Like it's contractual
Correct.
agreements.
Yeah.
It's not like you get a quote for $8,000 a year adding out on that $100.
Yeah.
Like it's
No, I wish, right? No.
I don't know if that's a common misconception, but
yeah, I think there are some folks that think that we control rate. And I always say, like, we get paid directly from the carrier, a small percentage of whatever your premium is. I don't make the rates up. Right now, I can change coverages in order to make the premium go up or down. But I am truly the middleman between the insurance carrier and the consumer. And, if I had a magic button that could save everybody 20 or 30%, obviously I would do that.
well, I mean, whenever it's cheaper, it's better for you because you increase your volume, right? You have more households and
100%. And really, yeah, I mean, I would love where rates would stay stable because we would have less folks, going, hey, why is my rate going through, or this is causing pain? Because we had a client the other day that said, well, my rate went up, $2,500. I was planning on buying, a trip to Europe. What can you do?
Yeah.
Right. And so those are tough conversations, right? But yes, I do not control rates, unfortunately.
yeah, I think that's something that I got a really good friend that owns a firm out in Brownwood, and we were talking about that this morning. He's like, people come in and they're like, what can you do to get this down? Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I'll just flip over the computer, kind of go, like, here's about
it makes me think of like the Michael Scott when he starts a paper company. Can you recrunch the numbers?
Yeah.
It was like, it crunch.
Yeah, exactly. That's basically it. Right. Yeah.
So one of the last things that I ask everybody is, you grew up in Fort Worth, right? So you came back. What do you love about Fort Worth?
Anyway, there's so much to love. I think the biggest thing is that first of all, the culture, right? And there's so many different types of people in Fort Worth that I love. But also, it's a small town filled with it being a big city. And you probably get that answer a lot, right?
That's the same answer every time.
Yeah. But I love that, you can go to, Micasinas for a spot, right off Hewlett. And I feel like it's 5 minutes down the road, but like every time I go in, I can see 2 or 3 people I haven't seen in a while, right? Although it being a big city, I just feel like there's still that small town feel, right? That you can say, hey, buddy, I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like I get that a lot of places I go in Fort Worth. I feel like you can fit in here in whatever you like to do, right? Obviously, I like to play golf, and you like to play golf, so
You're just much, much better at it than me.
well, I grew up playing, and so I'm not good compared to a lot of people. So, but I think I can't imagine myself anywhere else.
I always thought I found it interesting. You know, I came here from Odessa, and there, like, you go to Odessa and you get out.
Yeah.
Like, you go to school and you go somewhere else. Here, it feels like everybody will go and then they come back, but I get it now. Like, you really can't. There's everything's here.
Yeah.
And I do love it. It feels like the way I grew up back home.
Yeah.
And except you have restaurants, trees, and it's actually nice to be here.
There's not dirt blowing in your face. Yeah.
Are there any last tips or information that you want to share?
You know, the one thing that I will say this in terms of products, and we've been trying to educate folks a lot about, is when you're buying a house, you're buying debt, right? You're taking out debt, and it's an asset. I think it's great. I think having a life policy that you control is so crucial. So many people don't think anything's ever going to happen to them, right? And I just feel like we had a client that last year we talked to her, everything's good. 2 months later, she gets diagnosed with cancer, and she ultimately passed away last week. But having a life policy that you can control, right? And that if something happens, your house is paid for, your cars are paid for, your future earnings are paid for. Having a life policy that can control that and can give your family a tax-free check for them to spend however they want to. I think that kind of goes all in on audit home and kind of completes that insurance checklist. Super, super important. And most people don't think about it, especially people our age.
Yeah. And as you get older, right, you have kids, you start buying things. If you kind of start piecing it together, like, okay, we got to get a will, we got to do that. It's like you need a financial advisor. So I think that's one of the things that's really cool about what I do and what you do, is that we get to be part of, like, truly advisors. Like, that's the role I want to take. I don't want to be just a door opener. I want to be a financial advisor for people's biggest asset, real estate.
Yeah.
I'm not a financial advisor, but when it comes to real estate, I want to be the guy they call to give them the best advice. So having your team in place and making the right decisions, it's good to have people out there that are doing that, like you guys. Hunter, people want to get a hold of you. How can they reach you?
Yeah. Hunter at worth-insurance.com, or you can call my cell phone at any time, 817-734-2275.
Well, this was another episode of Real Talk with Reside Real Estate. If we can be a resource to you in any way, please reach out.